Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Give me some energy. It's second. So my friend really had a great talk on Angular, and now I'm going to talk about React. By the way, how many of you know both Angular and React? Oh, smart people. I'm definitely not that smart. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about the new features in React 18. So React 18 was launched in March 2022 with the major focus on performance benefits. Today, I will cover almost all the new features, including automatic batching, concurrency, which is one of the breaking change in this version. Then I will go over the new hooks introduced, including useID, useTransition, and useDeferredValue. Then I'll talk about suspense, what is suspense in general, and what are the changes in this version. So a bit about myself. My name is Aashima. I'm working as a front-end engineer in Amsterdam. I worked with Miro and Booking.com before. I also create some content on LinkedIn, so if you want to check out some short videos. And if you have any doubts after this talk, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter. So talking about automatic batching. So we all know that whenever there is any state update, React does a re-render. And batching is when React group those multiple state updates in a single render for performance benefits. To understand this better, let's look at an example. Let's say we have two state variables. One is count, and the another one is active. There is an event listener increment count, which is attached on the button click. And what it does is that it updates both the two states. Now, ideally, since there are two state updates, so there should be two renders. But what React does is that it automatically batches these two state updates, so we only have one render. But what happens if I wrap it inside any asynchronous function like setTimeout, or inside .then callback or fetch? So in this case, React does not automatically batch it. So there will be two renders here instead of one. But now in React 18, everything is batched out of the box, irrespective of if you are calling the state updates inside any asynchronous function or not. However, sometimes you might want not to batch the state updates. So you can wrap that particular state inside flushSync method, and React will do an extra render for that particular state update. Next we talk about is the useID hook. So the useID hook was introduced to generate IDs which are consistent across both client and server. And this part is important, that all the IDs generated are consistent across both the client and server. Now, why do we need unique IDs? We need unique IDs for the accessibility. In order to support accessibility, we use ARIA attributes like ARIA live, ARIA described by, and we need to use IDs there. So let's say we have a component, which is a form component, and it has a password field. Now here, one way is that I use hard-coded IDs, like I'm using here a password hint. But the problem with this is that your component might render multiple times on a page. And in that case, the IDs will no longer be unique. So what's the another way? So what we can do is that we can use mat.random to generate a unique ID. And this works well on client. Yes, it's OK. Yeah, we can generate it. But the problem comes with the server-side rendering. Because during hydration, when the mat.random will generate a random ID. So we'll have an ID mismatch during hydration. So that's why we had a hook, useID. We can call useID, and it gives us this unique ID, which can be used for the ARIA attributes as well as for the ID attribute. Now, let's say I have some more fields in the form, like first name, last name, and we also want to use unique IDs here. So what should we do? Like call this useID 3 times? OK. But your form might be long, right? It can have 20 fields. So then calling it 20 times will not be very efficient. So what we do instead is that we'll call it once, and use it as a prefix, like I'm using it here with ID, then first name, then ID, and then a pending last name. So we called it once, and we can use it as a prefix. The IDs look something like this. So it's some binary format which represents what is the position of elements in the DOM tree. Next we talk about is concurrency. In order to explain concurrency in React, I'm going to give you a hypothesis. Let me take you to the back days of HTML. So let's say you have multiple script tags in your HTML, and which are specified in the same order, script A, B, C. Now, what is their order of execution? So the scripts are executed in the same order in which they are written. So first, A script will get executed, then B script will get executed, and finally, C script will get executed. Now, let's say my A script is very heavy, and it's taking a long time to execute. So now my B and C scripts are blocked because my A script is taking a long time. But in HTML, we can defer the script. So now the new order of execution becomes B, C, and then A. And this is exactly what concurrency in React is. Just that instead of script tags, you have some state updates. So before React 18, all the state updates used to happen in the order in which they were written. So first, Twitter will do the layoffs, then Meta will do the layoffs, and finally, Google will do the layoffs, which I had no idea when I was writing this slide. So all the state updates were synchronous. But now, React can pause, interrupt, and abandon a render. While this sounds like a jargon to you, let's say how we can use concurrency to improve performance of our application. So I have here a list of items, which I'm going to filter. So this list is really long, very long. Like 5,000 items, you're going to filter everything on the client with no offenses, just for the sake of this example. So the code for it's very simple. So we have two state variables. One is for the query, and the another one is for setting the filtered items. So now on input change, I call the function filter items, which will filter the items based on the user input. And it sets the two states, set query and set filter items. Now let's see what happens when I try to type here, try to filter. There's a bit of lag, but you cannot notice right now. Let me show. So I'm going to press back. I have pressed back. My hands are up. But if you notice, the search box and the items took a while to actually execute. So let me do it again. So I'm filtering. Sometimes you'd really want your computer to be slow. So my hands are up. OK, it took a while. So it's not a very good user experience, because user is feeling lag as user is typing. So what I want here is that my user input should be instant. As the user type, the search box should give an instant feedback. But the list of items can still wait. It's OK to have that, a bit of lag in that. So here, the lag is because I'm setting so many, like 5,000 items on the UI. So this set filtered items is like my heavy script. It's taking a long time to get updated. So what's the solution? We want to defer it. How we can defer in React is using these two hooks, useTransition and useDeferredValue. So we can import useTransition, and useTransition returns us two things. One is pending flag and start transition. Now you simply wrap this heavy update, which is set filtered items, inside start transition. Now let me show you how this behaves. So as I'm typing, it's instant. When I clear it, the input box is instantly cleared. But you can see the list of items is not updated. My input is clear, but the list of items is still showing the stale results. So it's taking a while, and now, yeah. So what we can further do is that make use of this isPending flag to show the loader. So we'll do is pending, and if the transition is still in process, then we show the loading state. Otherwise, we show the list of items. And this is how it looks now. So I'm typing, and then as I click back, there's a loader, and then we show the list of items. So here you can see that we improved the performance, that instantly when user is typing, the user is getting an instant feedback. So it does not feel laggy, and the UI is not blocked. Now what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to take out this part, like the filtered items, this list inside another component. OK, sorry. So what you can also do is that you can use, sometimes it's better to show stale results. So what you can also do is set an opacity of the list to 50%. So now I've taken out that code, like this particular this UI list inside another component, which is my item list component. And let's suppose you don't have control over this part of the code because it's logged or it's coming from some third API, but you're not allowed to change this. You cannot wrap this state inside useTransition. So what is the another solution? Because I still want to defer my heavy update. So here, what we can do, that instead of looping over the items, I can use the hook useDeferredValue. And this value is lagging behind. So this is not the updated value. So as you type, this filtered item gets set, right? So as I'm typing, the value is changed. But this deferred items value is not set immediately. It's like a debounce. As I'm typing, the value is not getting updated for the deferred items. It will get updated later on, at the end, when all the updates have been complete. So this value is lagging behind, and I'm looping over the old value. So this update is not taking very long time. Now I want to show the loading. So what I can do here is I can check that if deferred items is not equal to the items, then I can show the loader. And this will work exactly the same way as useTransition. Now, when to use what? So it's advised by the React team to use useDeferredValue when you don't have control over the state. So when you cannot use useTransition to wrap your state, so you can use useDeferredValue. Otherwise, it's preferred to use useTransition. But there is also a catch. Both the useTransition and useDeferredValue, they are doing an extra render. So if you use it too much, it's not going to make things better for you, but instead worse, because your application will get slow because of extra renders. So they are great tools, but use it wisely in your application. So I'm going to take a pause to digest whatever I said. By the way, are you guys familiar with the beta docs? This is like really, really good. So like it's really well explained. So you can read more about useTransition. There are a bunch of examples you can go through. And same you can do for the useDeferredValue as well. So last part is I'm going to talk about Suspense. How many of you are already using Suspense? OK, only some people are working with Next.js. OK, Suspense, in general, it lets you specify the loading state of the part of component tree when it's not ready to be displayed yet. The main, so there are like two use cases for Suspense. So one, we use Suspense for displaying the fallback for lazy loaded component. Like if I have a component profile, which I'm lazy loading, so I can wrap it inside Suspense and show the loading state by specifying the fallback inside the Suspense. Another big use case of Suspense, for which Suspense got really popular, was the data fetching. So let's say there is another component, posts, which fetches a bunch of posts and returns those bunch of posts. Now, I also want to display the posts. So what I can do is that I can also wrap it inside Suspense. And now, the profile and post will get loaded. So the Suspense will show fallback if both of these components are not completely loaded. What Suspense is really useful in is that when you have multiple loading states on the screen, when you have multiple loaders. So in this case, let's say I want to show profile even if the posts are not completely loaded, right? I don't want to block the other parts from getting displayed. And these things can be very easily controlled with Suspense, that you can wrap this post inside Suspense fallback. So this works like a try-catch. And one thing I want to mention here is that this fetch post part. So this needs to be compatible with this Suspense API. If you're using Next.js or if you're using Relay, then by default it's supported. With React query, it's not yet supported. So you might have to write an additional function which is compatible with Suspense. What you can do to catch errors is that wrap everything inside an error boundary and show the error in case anything fails. So this is how Suspense was used to work before React 18. So it was mainly used for code splitting and was only supported in client. But now, Suspense is also supported with server-side rendering. So let's say, let me first briefly explain the server-side rendering. So in server-side rendering, when user requests a website, server sends an HTML to the client, which is instantly shown to the user, so that the browser does not have to wait to download the JavaScript. So now, after the page is sent from the server, there's also another process of hydration, which is that server will try to match the file which was generated by the client and which was sent from the server. Now, let's say we want to server-side render this particular page. So we have a navbar, we have a profile, and this post is a data fetching component. So it's loading like a bunch of posts. But if my post component is slow, right, my server needs to download the post before sending it to the client. And if my post component is slow, it's going to take a while to send the page to the client. And this kills the whole point of server-side rendering, right? Server-side rendering is meant to improve the FCP. But with Suspense, what we can do is that we can use Suspense to show a loading state when the posts are not ready. So now we are going to ship this HTML to the client, even though the posts have not been downloaded. So now the next part I mentioned is hydration, right? So the hydration needs to start once the page has been sent and the client has downloaded. So what about the hydration in this case? So what Suspense does is that it allows selective hydration. So first, what I received from server was this loading. And the hydration will happen for the navbar, for the profile, and for this loading. And when posts are ready, they are sent from the server again. And there will be a separate hydration just for the post that was sent from the server. So this was what Suspense is. So this was mainly about streaming HTML and selective hydration. Thank you for coming to hear my talk. And you can check out the slides on this Netlify app and check out the code examples on the GitHub. Thank you.